The sound of laughter filled the sunlit kitchen as I poured coffee into three mismatched mugs. It was a Saturday morning ritual that had become a cherished tradition over the years. My husband Liam and my best friend Emma were seated at the table, exchanging playful banter as I brought the mugs over. Two sugars, just the way you like it, I said, placing Emma's mug in front of her. You're a lifesaver, as always, she said with a wink, wrapping her hands around the steaming cup. Liam grinned at me, his blue eyes sparkling. She knows how to keep us both happy. I laughed, brushing off the comment as nothing more than a compliment to my hostess skills. But looking back, I realized there was something in the way he said it. Something I should have noticed. Our life seemed perfect. Liam and I had been married for 7 years, our relationship built on love, trust, and shared dreams. Emma had been my best friend since college, a constant presence through the ups and downs of my life. The three of us were inseparable, our bond unshakable. Or so I thought. That day, we planned a picnic at the park. Emma helped me pack sandwiches and snacks while Liam loaded the car. Everything felt light and easy, like it always did when we were together. I don't know what I'd do without you two, I said as we spread out the blanket under a shady oak tree. Emma smiled, her expression warm but unreadable. We're a team, aren't we? I nodded, oblivious to the cracks forming beneath the surface. In hindsight, the changes were so gradual that I barely noticed them. Liam started coming home later from work, blaming meetings that ran overtime. Emma began canceling plans with me more frequently, citing vague excuses about being too busy. At first, I didn't think much of it. Life had a way of getting hectic, and we all had our own responsibilities. But then there were the moments that didn't add up, like the time I called Liam's office and was told he had left hours earlier, or the cryptic text messages Emma quickly hid when I glanced her way. Is everything okay? I asked Emma one evening as we sipped wine on my couch. Of course, she said, her tone too casual. Why wouldn't it be? I shrugged, pushing down the nagging feeling in my chest. I don't know. You've just seemed distant lately. She waved it off with a laugh. Work's been crazy, that's all. You know how it is. I nodded, wanting to believe her. After all, this was Emma, my best friend, my confidant. The first real seed of doubt was planted on an otherwise uneventful Tuesday afternoon. Liam had left early for a business dinner, and Emma had canceled our weekly yoga session, claiming she wasn't feeling well. I was home alone, flipping through a magazine when my phone buzzed. It was a text from an acquaintance, someone I rarely spoke to, followed by a photo. The message read, "Hey, I thought you'd want to know. Isn't this Liam?" My heart stopped. In the picture taken from across a restaurant, Liam sat at a table with a woman whose face I couldn't see clearly, but her long auburn hair was unmistakable. Emma. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe they were just grabbing a quick meal. But why wouldn't they tell me? And why had Emma canceled on me? I dialed Liam's number, my hands trembling. The call went straight to voicemail. Next, I tried Emma. She picked up on the third ring. "Hey," she said, her voice soft and slightly hoarse, as if she had been sleeping. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Just checking in. How are you feeling?" "Oh, you know," she replied, letting out a faint sigh. "Still a little under the weather. I'm in bed right now." I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tightly. "I'm sorry to hear that. Get some rest, okay?" "Thanks, hun. I'll call you tomorrow." As soon as the call ended, a cold wave of realization swept over me. She was lying. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed the image in my mind over and over again, trying to make sense of it. Doubts turned into suspicions, and suspicions turned into questions I couldn't ignore. The next day, I decided to test my theory. I called Liam at work. "Hey," I said casually. "How was your dinner last night?" "It was fine," he replied, his tone a little too smooth. Just a long, boring meeting with clients. You wouldn't have enjoyed it. Oh, really? I asked, forcing a smile into my voice. Where did you go? Some steakhouse downtown. I don't even remember the name. I knew he was lying. The following weeks were a blur of quiet observation and gathering evidence. I hated myself for snooping, but I couldn't silence the growing unease in my chest. I checked Liam's phone when he left it unattended, only to find his messages with Emma were suspiciously clean. No banter, no casual updates. Nothing like the friendly exchanges they used to share. Then there was the calendar on his laptop. He always kept a meticulous schedule, but I noticed recurring meetings at odd hours, times that didn't align with his usual work obligations. One Friday evening, when Liam said he had to work late, I decided to follow him. I parked a few blocks away from his office and waited, my stomach twisting with anxiety. Sure enough, an hour later, he emerged from the building. But he wasn't alone. Emma was with him. I watched as they walked down the street together, their heads close, laughing like they shared a secret. They stopped at a small cafe where Liam pulled out a chair for her, his hand lingering on her back just a moment too long. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. My worst fears were no longer fears. They were reality. I didn't confront them that night. Instead, I went home and cried until there were no tears left. My heart was a mix of rage, pain, and disbelief. How could they do this to me? Liam, the man I had promised to love and trust, and Emma, the person I had considered a sister. The next morning, I woke up with a newfound determination. I wouldn't let them continue to deceive me. When Liam came home that evening, I was waiting for him in the living room. Hey, he said, tossing his keys on the table. What's for dinner? We need to talk, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. He froze, his smile faltering. What's wrong? I held up my phone, displaying the photo from the restaurant. You tell me. For a moment, he said nothing. His face went pale, and I could see the gears turning in his head as he tried to come up with an excuse. It's not what it looks like, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Don't, I said, cutting him off. Don't lie to me. I saw you with her last night. His eyes widened. You followed me? Don't you dare make this about me, I snapped, my voice rising. How long has this been going on, Liam? How long have you been sleeping with my best friend? He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His silence was all the confirmation I needed. That night, I called Emma. She didn't deny it either. I didn't mean for this to happen, she said, her voice thick with tears. But it did, I replied coldly. And now I have to figure out how to pick up the pieces of my life because of you two. The days following the confrontation were a whirlwind of emotions. Grief, anger, humiliation, and most of all, disbelief. How could my life, which once felt so stable, unravel so completely? Liam had moved out of the house the night I confronted him. He didn't argue when I told him to leave. He just packed a bag and left without saying much. The silence was almost worse than words. I couldn't decide if I wanted him to stay and fight for me or disappear forever. Emma, on the other hand, tried to reach out multiple times. She left voicemails, sent long, apologetic texts, and even showed up at my door once. I didn't answer. Her betrayal stung just as deeply, if not more than Liam's. She had been my closest confidant, the person I trusted most in the world. One night, as I sat on the couch staring at the blank TV screen, my phone buzzed. Another message from Emma. I know you hate me, and I deserve it. I just need you to know I never meant to hurt you. Please, let me explain. I threw the phone onto the coffee table, the words blurring through my tears. Explain? What could she possibly say to justify what she'd done? I had spent years sharing my life with her, my secrets, my fears, even my dreams for my future with Liam. And she had taken it all and used it to destroy me. Grieving a betrayal is a strange kind of mourning. It wasn't just the loss of Liam or Emma. It was the loss of the life I thought I had, the version of myself that felt secure, loved, and valued. Some days were better than others. On the good days, I managed to distract myself with work or a long run at the park. On the bad days, I couldn't get out of bed. I replayed every moment that now seemed like a clue, wondering how I could have been so blind. One memory haunted me more than the others. A birthday dinner 2 years ago. Emma had been there, of course, laughing at Liam's jokes and helping me blow out the candles on my cake. That night, as we cleaned up, she had hugged me tightly and said, "You're so lucky to have him." Lucky. Now, I wondered if she had meant it sincerely, or if she had already begun coveting what was mine. A month passed, and I realized I couldn't live like this, trapped in the wreckage of what had been. I needed to rebuild, to reclaim my life on my terms. The first step was therapy. I found a counselor, Dr. Patel, who specialized in helping people navigate betrayal and loss. In our first session, I broke down, spilling every detail of what had happened. "I feel like I don't even know who I am anymore," I admitted, wiping my tears with the tissue she handed me. "That's a normal reaction to betrayal," she said gently. "But you're not defined by what happened to you. You're still here. That means you have the power to redefine yourself." Her words stayed with me. I began to journal, writing down not just my pain, but also my hopes, my goals, and the things I still loved about life. I also started reconnecting with people I had drifted away from over the years. One of those people was Hannah, an old friend from college who had always been a steady presence. When I told her what had happened, she didn't hesitate. "I'm coming over," she said. An hour later, she was at my door with a bottle of wine and a stack of old movies. We stayed up late, talking and laughing in a way I hadn't done in what felt like forever. "You're going to be okay," Hannah said as we clinked glasses. "Better than okay. You'll see." One afternoon, a few weeks later, I received an unexpected email from Emma. The subject line was simple: "Please read this." I hesitated before opening it. Part of me wanted to delete it without a second thought. But another part, the part that still craved closure, needed to know what she had to say. The email was long, filled with apologies and explanations. She admitted that the affair had started during a rough patch in her own life, a time when she felt lonely and insecure. "I was selfish and weak," she wrote. "I know that doesn't excuse what I did. I just want you to know how deeply sorry I am. I miss you, and I miss the friendship we had. If you can ever find it in your heart to forgive me, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it up to you." I closed the email, my emotions swirling. Forgiveness felt impossible, but I couldn't deny that her words carried a hint of sincerity. In time, I began to feel the weight of the betrayal lifting. Therapy helped, as did the support of friends like Hannah. I threw myself into projects that reignited my sense of purpose. Volunteering, taking up painting, and even planning a solo trip to Italy, something I'd always dreamed of doing. As for Liam and Emma, I didn't reach out to either of them. They were no longer part of my story, and I was finally okay with that.